I was born in Eldon, Missouri, back 95 years ago. 29th of February. I was one of them lucky boys, I guess, or unlucky, I don't know which. Anyway, I was born west of Eldon, about a mile west of Eldon, on just off of Highway Y. And they've still got a house there. And when I got about 6 or 7 years old, I went to school, which was about 2 miles from there. We had to walk. It was a little country school, one room. The teacher done all the things, and my folks traded the place there in Eldon for one down on the Sleen Creek, and we had to build a house. We built a house, an old log house we started out with, and then the school was about 2 to 3 miles back in the boondocks.
Is it still
Wasn't no roads to it.
Is it still there today?
Yeah, this building is still there. Ginger Ridge. It was in the Tuscumbia School District. People that was taking care of the school, they would cut a tree down, a sycamore tree, and tie it where it couldn't wash away. And we had to cross a creek, and we'd climb over that thing on that tree. And I didn't go to school, to high school, because it would have been about 3 miles we'd had to walk over to Highway 52 and to go to Tuscumbia. So I decided not to go to high school. We had to cross 2 little creeks to go there, and the roads, the cars were getting stuck on the roads, so I didn't want to walk over there.
Yeah.
So I didn't go to high school. But the Army got me after that.
So, do you remember where you were at when you first heard about Pearl Harbor and all that, and what the general public reaction was to that news?
Well, I didn't know what was really going on. It was something that never had happened before, and I didn't think much about it. Pearl Harbor was a long ways off, and first thing I knowed, I got a letter in the mail that said, "Greetings, we need you."
So you got drafted?
I got drafted. I went to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas to be inducted. There was a busload of us from Eldon that went to there, and we went in there and got inducted, and they gave us barracks bag. We had a barracks bag on both of our shoulders, and our arms were naked, and we'd go through there and boom, boom, they'd give us shots. It wasn't funny. At the front of the line, they had a picture of the needle that was going. It was about this long. It was huge. Some of the boys passed out thinking about it.
Wow.
But I made it. My old arms really got sore.
So what was your basic training experience like?
Well, from there they sent me to Fort Knox, Kentucky. And we trained all day. The 3rd Armored Division trained all day. And at night, the 83rd Reconnaissance trained all night. So it didn't matter whether it was raining, snowing, or cold, or hot. We went. That was our training. The weather didn't make any difference to us. It did, but they sent us out anyway. It was really terrible.
So what kind of guns did you shoot back then during training? Do you remember?
Oh, the M1, we trained with that M1, and the Thompson submachine gun, and 80 caliber machine gun, and they trained us on everything.
Do you have any drill instructors or anybody who kind of stuck out in your mind? Do you still remember any of them?
Oh yeah, that was a funny one there in England. We were on night maneuvers, and oh, it was dusty and cold and miserable. And one of the guys called and said, "Lieutenant, Lieutenant, I'm lost. I lost the column through this old dust." He said, the lieutenant said, "Well, can you find any landmark or anything so we know where you went?" Well, it went on for a couple of minutes, and then pretty soon he come on, "Lieutenant, Lieutenant, I've got it, I've got it." Said, "Do you see a Big Dipper up there? Them 2 stars are pointing down. I'm right in under them." You ought to hear the lieutenant. He about blowed his top. But he finally got back in the column.
You got sent to Europe, right? You fought in Europe?
Yeah. Well, we got there and we was in England for about a year, right at it, training. And when D-Day come up, we was alerted. I don't know whether we was out in the channel at that time, but we was on the boat. But we didn't land in Normandy. It was the last of June when they landed, because they had them big spikes, steel spikes in the channel, and they had to clean them out so our boat could get in. If they hadn't, we'd have been in 10 foot of water and that wouldn't have worked. Because a lot of them in D-Day was in there like that. They got drowned before they ever done anything.
Wow.
I forget, but there was like 2,500 got killed on D-Day. I've got it in my books.
Did you know anybody who was there on D-Day?
No.
What was your job in the 3rd Armored?
Reconnaissance. I've got a picture of it. Everything behind us, but we was out front. I was out front, even in front of the little airplane, the Piper Cub airplane. He could look out ahead and see what was up ahead and could tell us. And he would do that. And if he seen tanks up to the right, he said, "There's tanks up there, what do you want to do about it?" He kind of joked about it.
So you would have been ahead of the front lines and everything. You were ahead of the infantry and all that? Wow.
I was in front of everybody. How I made it back, I don't know. Only the one up above knows why they saved me. After we crossed the Rhine River, they bombed the place first, and we took off right after the last bomber was there, and it broke a place in there, so we took off. We drove 101 miles. We went through everything. We didn't stop for nothing. We blowed up troop trains. We went through a whack camp. Them girls just about went berserk.
Wow.
And whenever we got up to the end, where the 7th Army and the British was on the other side, they made a contact there. We sealed them all. And I think there was 82,000 German prisoners in there.
Wow.
The funny thing was, when we made the 100 miles, we was up there, it was pretty near dark, and we shoved a couple of tanks across the road, and we heard an old staff car coming. And boy, he'd come up, he was a colonel, German colonel. He jumps out of his vehicle and comes over there and in German. I said, "Nix versteh." He said, "Who are you?" I said, "We're Americans." "You SOB's supposed to be 100 miles. What are you doing up here?" I said, "We move fast." I said, "Give me your Luger." "No, officers don't have to give up their sidearms." I said, I took that Thompson, I stubbed it in his belly. I said, "You got about 3 seconds. one, two. He was old, and I brought that home with me.
Do you still have it?
No.
Oh shoot.
And the story of the Luger was whenever I got out, well, we didn't have no money, and I'd done a lot of hunting and fishing for my folks to have food. And Eckenberger Hardware, Dewey Eckenberger, here I had that. He said, I'll trade you a brand new 16 gauge automatic shotgun for that. I said, oh, I don't think I want to get rid of it. He said, think it over. And I needed a gun to hunt, so I finally gave up and went up there and traded with him. And I don't know what ever happened to it.
How did you receive your Purple Heart?
Oh, I got wounded. One piece, you can see the scar here yet. One in between my eyeball and that bone. It was about that long. I reached up there and pulled it out. And blood just flew. My face turned black.
Wow.
But it didn't bother my sight. It went in, right in but there.
So just a piece of shrapnel from something?
Yeah, piece of shrapnel from, I don't know, mortars or artillery, something.
Wow.
And then the next one I got was here on my arm. There's a place about that long. That's really a pretty white bone in there.
Yeah.
They had to take clamps and clamp it together.
Ooh.
But I made it. It don't bother me any. And this on my fingers here, well, you can still feel that. If I go through the checkpoints, sometimes that sets it off.
You still have shrapnel in your finger? Wow.
And then they take a while, things and go over me. I'll tell them, well, I've got that. Now I've got a pacemaker here, so I don't go through the line anymore.
Were there very many casualties in your unit?
A lot. I can tell you right here. We had 15,000 when we went in. When the war was over, we had 7,451 and 2,014 casualties. Well, anyway, we had a lot of casualties. When the war was over, there were only like 4,000 out of the 15,000, and they was in bad shape. Some of them had legs blowed off of them, and
wow.
we didn't have very many good ones. Oh, we was lost most of the time. We was out. The biggest lie the Army ever told me, they said, you boys in the recon don't have to worry. Said the Germans won't get you, you don't have to do no fighting. They were right. But whenever we got in behind the enemy lines, that was a different story. We couldn't get back out.
Wow.
They let a lone Jeep get in, but we had to hide out. They was waiting for the tanks and infantry and all come in, but the lone Jeep, they didn't care about it coming in.
You were a gunner, weren't you?
I had a 50 caliber on the Jeep, and I had two Thompsons in the floorboard. I carried one of them, and I had a spare. The worst thing I come up with was Battle of the Bulge. When we first got in there, there's what it looked like. 20 below zero there. We were in a little town about, oh, it was close to daylight. And the lieutenant said, there's small arms fire up the road here. Said, we got to go up and find out what it is. I said, you think we better go in vehicles? Yeah. He said, we've got lots of firepower. We've got a tank, an armored car, and 2 Jeeps. I said, well, okay. And it was 20 below zero. And we took out. And we hadn't went, quarter of a mile till we run into Germans. They laying on both sides of the road. The snow was about half knee deep, and they're shooting crossfire. And they hit the Jeep, and I'll get to it in a minute. Anyway, they were shooting crossfire. They was laying in ditches, shooting crossfire. Hit the lieutenant right here. He fell back on my lap. I burnt the 50 caliber up in them 2 Thompson. I emptied them within 2 or 3 minutes. And the driver said, "What we gonna do? What we gonna do?" I said, "Keep going, keep going." He said, I can't hold it. It's got flat tires on it." And we finally went up there. We finally got out of them. I tried the old radio, it wouldn't work. I looked down, I always sat on the radio on the back, right behind the lieutenant. And I looked down, and a bullet had come between my legs and tore the radio up.
Wow, that's crazy.
And so the driver said, "What are we going to do with the lieutenant?" I said, "He's dead." He said, "We've got to walk up to the roadblock," which was a mile, something like that, from where we was at. And so we took off and walking. We left everything in the Jeep. All we took was a gun. We got up there, they wanted to take me to the hospital because the lieutenant blood was all over me. I said, "No, that's not my blood." And so they finally decided, they found me some clothes. I don't know how they had some extra clothes in them tanks and things. And so they got me dressed up in another, and then we couldn't find our outfit. We didn't have no vehicles, no way to get around. We just had to hitchhike. And we finally found them about 2 days later. And then they give me another Jeep. And I told, me and the driver didn't get a scratch out of it.
Wow.
And the other 12 men, they either got killed or captured. They never did show up.
They took out everybody?
The tank and the armored car was burned up, and the other Jeep was all shot to pieces. But whenever we come back, I didn't look on the inside because they was burned up, and I didn't want to look in there. But the 12 other men that was with us didn't never show up. So they either got killed or captured. That was the 24th of December, 1944. I can remember because it's the day before Christmas.
Yeah.
I had a good Christmas. Trying to keep away from them Germans.
So you were still behind enemy lines during that whole time?
Yeah. Well, we finally had a Jeep, and we'd run around and try to keep away from the Germans. There's a picture of what it looked like. These pine trees went up like this, and they had snow all the way down. And we try to get out of the cold and out of the Germans. We dig a hole back in here and crawl in there.
So did you have any warm clothes or anything? Do you have anything to keep you warm?
Like this. All of our food and everything was in the Jeeps. And we didn't have no food for about 2 weeks. And for water, we'd take the snow and eat the snow for water. But we didn't have no food because the food trucks couldn't get in there. And our food was in the Jeep. So we didn't have no food. But we made it.
I'm assuming that's how you got some of your medals?
Yeah. I
Okay.
can't remember all them. This was two Purple Hearts. That's a Bronze Star here. I got that Bronze Star, and then I got 5 more Bronze Stars. It was put into one of these for them Bronze Star for each battle that I was in. It tells you in there on it. Then I got all the rest of them. It mentions them there. I can't remember them all.
So it looks like you got medals from different countries and everything. It says Normandy, Luxembourg, Belgium. Wow.
About all of them there.
Good conduct medal.
You have the picture up there of one of the generals pinning a medal on you?
Yeah. Major General Morris Rose. You can see there was snow back in behind us. It was cold.
So that was during Battle of the Bulge?
Yeah, that was right after the Battle of the Bulge, I think. He was pinning the Bronze Star on me. And I don't know what he pinned on the others. There was quite a few in there, and that was snow on the ground there. It was cold. You can tell that by the clothes we was wearing.
So how long did that battle last?
A little over a month.
After the war was over, did you keep in touch with any of the people that you served with?
A few of them, until they started dropping off, and then I didn't have no more to get hold of. I belong to 8 different organizations. I'm a lifetime member of them. VFW, American Legion, DAV, and I don't know, a whole bunch of them.
Did you ever get any days for leave or any time off?
I think a week off in Paris, France.
Oh wow. So what time of year would that have been?
Yeah, it was in the fall. It was pretty nice weather. We wasn't fighting much at that time. They didn't give us much time off when we was in battle. I had one guy that had a camera, but he got killed, and I don't know what happened to the camera.
You mentioned a little bit ago that you were one of the first people to find a concentration camp.
Yeah, at Nordhausen concentration camp. We were going, and we come up onto this thing. It had barbed wire fence, and there was people in there with these, I don't know what kind of suits they had on, but they was prisoners. They was the ones that worked in that factory. They give them 4 ounces of black bread and a cup of soup a day to work in that factory.
What were they building in the factory?
They were making the V1 and V2 rockets that they were shooting over to London, England. Them, there's a picture, I've got pictures of them, that rockets, that one, V2 was huge. It was, probably 10 foot high, and I don't know how long. And whenever they shoot them things out, it sounded like a car messing. It plump, plump, plump. Whenever it stopped, you better move out. Because that's how they detonated it. Was whenever it stopped, they had just enough fuel to go to London or England, wherever they was going to. Whenever it run out of fuel, it fell, and that's when it exploded.
How many people were in that concentration camp?
I would say 5,000 or 6,000. Of course, there were 3,000 dead ones that they starved to death there. Whenever we come in there, we didn't know what was happening. There were 2 or 3 generals come in and looked at it, and they just shook their head. This can't be.
Wow.
And after that, we seen black smoke about 10 miles north. We thought the airplanes were bombing, but they wasn't when we come up there. They had 6 of these furnaces where they cremated them, and they had them overloaded. And out in the courtyard, they laid down a layer of wood, a layer of bodies, wood as high as they could go, set that on fire. That was the black smoke we seen. There was hundreds of them, they piled in there. The SS didn't want us to catch them.
So they were just trying to get rid of the evidence real fast?
They trying to get rid of the evidence. There was evidence everywhere. We'd come into a little town and take it. Maybe there'd be 2 or 3 hanging there. That the SS got to them and said, "You do what we tell you or you're going to die." And they'd take one out and hang him up and say, "Now this is what's going to happen if you don't obey our rules." They come in their houses, even in Germany, they come in the houses and take anything they wanted. But you dared not to tell them no. If you didn't, they'd take you out there and hang you and say, "This is what's going to happen to you." I seen that, so I know that what happened.
What did they do with all the people once they liberated the camp?
I don't know what they done with them. Yeah, the live ones, my size, would have weighed about 80 or 90 pounds.
Wow.
It was a sight that you never want to see again.
I assume they were pretty happy to see you guys, though.
Yeah, and the live ones, the officer said, "Don't give them no food. If you give them food, you'll kill them." So they'd been starved so long. They said, "You can't feed them." And when the live ones, there was probably 30–40% of them made it. The rest of them died. You wonder, what in the world are you doing over here?
I bet. You said you were 19 at the time?
Yeah, you wonder, why? All the people are dying. In Battle of the Bulge there, the 101st and 101st was the main one that was there at Bastogne. They had them off. They had them captured, but they wouldn't give up. And this general there, the Germans come in there and told him if he don't give up, they're going to eliminate them all. And you know what the general told them? Nuts! And whenever they took that back to the headquarters, they didn't know what to say about it. They didn't give up. Then Patton, the Third Army, finally come in there, but they said, "We've made it this far, we really don't need you."
So were you near there? How far were you from Bastogne?
We were probably 50 miles, or maybe a little further. We was right in the middle. The Third Army, the First Army, and the Seventh Army. We were in the middle.
Do you remember any of the town names around there, or any of the particular spots you were at?
Elsenborn Ridge is one of the places. I can't remember all that. I don't know why.
Did you meet anybody famous while you were over there? Any of the big generals or anybody?
Yeah. I only met Eisenhower and General Rose and 3 or 4. There was 2 of them generals, I don't remember which ones it was, they're at Nordhausen. They come in there and they said, "We can't believe this. Is this really happening?"
Wow. So how did you manage to run into Eisenhower?
Well, he was around over there, and I'm not sure, but I think he was one that come into Nordhausen.
Do you remember where exactly you were when you got news about the war ending?
Yeah, I was on the Elbe River, about 45 miles from Berlin. We was on one side and the Russians on the other side. And the president and Stalin made a deal that the Russians was only about 30 miles from Berlin. The Russians go in there and capture Berlin. That's where Hitler was at. Hitler took cyanide poisoning and killed him, and his girlfriend, she done the same thing. We didn't get into Berlin, but our next objective was Berlin. When we pulled up there, and the two presidents made a deal that the Russians go in there.
So you probably weren't too disappointed about that.
No.
What did you do after you got back from the war?
I worked in the timber, cutting saw logs and stave bolts, and I finally built up a little cash. Then I thought, the automobiles is coming on, so I think I'll get into the automobile business. So I went to Ed Hunt on training mechanic work there in Eldon. It was a GI Bill that I got to go there for nothing and train. Then after I got out of that, then I decided to go into the junk business, automobile business. And so that worked pretty good. And I built up, and thereafter I got built up, I built a 37,000 square foot warehouse.
Wow.
And we recycled about everything in the metals, and aluminum cans was real popular at that time. We had people walking the roads picking up aluminum cans. The price was pretty good back then. And so I had 8 employees, I think, and I had a tractor trailer that I hauled my scrap to Kansas City and St. Louis. We'd work there over day, and then I'd take off at night and go to St. Louis. I'd get to St. Louis about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and get unloaded. I think I missed it one time in 2 years not being first there. Them guys say, "What time did you get up?" Anyway, I made that. And I've got a record that I don't think nobody's gonna break it. I drove a tractor and trailer for 10 years, and in my lifetime I drove 2 million miles, and I never did have an accident, and never did get a ticket.
That's pretty good.
I needed some, I think, but I didn't get them.
I was just wondering if you had any advice for the soldiers today that are just coming in.
Be number one. If you're number one, you don't get the KP and all that junk. If they like you and you do your job as number one, you get a rank and you get all that. But if you don't, you'll be down in the dumps. You won't get nothing. See, I get a lot from the veterans now. They treat me good, but I have to fight for it. Where I live there, we converted a 12-room motel, and 3 years ago, I said, let's quit that. I got tired of people coming in at midnight, knocking on your door, and they get in there and then they knock again. Can you knock a little of that off? And the hunters was the worst. They'd come in with their old bloody shoes and so ends there. Then we had to clean all that up. And 3 years ago, I said, I'm closing it down. So I got hold of the veterans. I said, we're going to close the motel down. We'd like to have a home. So they come in with, just like this, 3 rooms, and they furnished everything in it, the refrigerator and everything, $85,000 grant. What happened here? Let's see, the 15th of February, I guess it was. I was after, my van had 190,000 miles on it, and I turned it in to them. You know what they done? They gave me a new van, but I had to pay for it.
Is there anything else I didn't cover that you feel like adding?
Oh, there's a lot more, but I don't know how to get into it. It's in my books.
Yeah.
This is my general that
Oh, wow.
got killed. He's the one that done it all for us.
So he's the guy in the picture there? That pinned on
Yeah.
your wall?
No, this is 3rd Armored Division General. That was the division general. I'm in this book, Victory Through Valor. That's a story about me. No, but we go to a lot of places where a lot of veterans is at. Branson is my favorite. Got a parade car that we go in parades. Yeah, back in, it's been 4 or 5 months ago, Trump come to Columbia. You might have heard about it. And it was raining that day. And we went over there and it was lined up. And I thought, well, we ain't going. A guy come and said, come on, let's go. So he took me up there, close to where they check you in.
Yeah.
I had to go through one of them things. And we was, I don't know, a dozen people behind that. Another guy comes, I was in a wheelchair, he comes and said, let's go up front. He took us up there where they checked in. I was the first one checked in. Then after that, they wheel me, they have a big canopy like where hundreds of people can get in. They're at the airport. And I was sitting there where Trump was coming in on the walkway. And another guy come up, said, Harry, we're going down here. So he took me right down there, and we got within Trump, about here to her, right facing to him, and he throws me a red hat.
That's cool.
I should have worn my red hat. What I really like Trump, and when he went in, I didn't think much of him. But now then, he's the only president that's for North Korea.
Yeah, I saw that on the news.
Yeah, and all them countries over there, he's not afraid to go and talk to them. And
Yeah, I saw that. He was the first president in history to walk into North Korea.
I think that's a good thing. And a lot of them countries over there to back him. They don't like North Korea, because what North Korea does, wanting to start one of them nuclear wars.
Yeah.
And that won't be good for nobody. If one of them bombs happen to go in California and New York, look what that would do